further ado, you are now on. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm Reta, and I'm an alcoholic who chooses recovery today. I want to first of all thank Bridget for asking me to speak, and I feel like I'm being of service to you today. It helps my recovery. And another thing I'd like to preface, it always makes me nervous to speak, so I'll try not to get fumbled up over myself. I've jotted down so I can stay kind of on track and not go all over the place. First of all, I'd like to kind of start with my history, because I think that'll kind of give you an idea of maybe some of the reasons I started drinking to begin with. I was born to an alcoholic father who was just not available. And my mother was codependent, prescription drug user. She was always having nervous breakdowns, and she was addicted to Valium, and then she was addicted to Xanax, and you name it. So, and her marriage was her work. She hated her home life, so she just worked. And so therefore I was just kind of left to raise myself. I was the fourth child of I had three older brothers. They were a lot older than me, one 21, one 16, and one 10. So that kind of gives you an idea. And then here I come along. Those men in my life weren't, well, I don't know if I could say they weren't physically abusive, but they were not available. None of them. My dad had nothing to do with me, and my brothers only came home maybe once a year. They hated my parents, so they didn't come home either, and therefore I got no attention. And when on the few occasions that I did, I learned shame so young, so very young, because they would always tell me, well, I was a spoiled brat and blah, blah, blah. And I just felt a great sense of shame from a very, very early age. My first addiction was to food. I filled that hole I had inside of me with food, and therefore I became a very fat, what I call fat, ugly kid. And I still carry that little girl inside of me today. So, and I still do wrestle with that. No self-esteem whatsoever. And one thing I'll say that, as I got older, and if I went to a dance or something, this was like young, I would sit in the corner, and I was just a wallflower. I was fat, and no boy would pay a bit of attention, because boys don't like fat girls. It was my opinion and in my experience. And so, and another thing, I came from also a mixed message. My dad was a non-believer, and my mother came from a Christian family. And so I was raised with this duality spiritually. I did go with my mother to church until I found alcohol in boys, and then that was the end of that. I finally did lose the weight, and so I was 14, and I started drinking and running around with the bad boys. And I said goodbye to the church, because it was not fun. And so for the next 20 years, I partied and drank, and didn't have anything to do with religious stuff. I married the first man I married when I was 18, and I wasn't married very long. He was alcoholic and very abusive, beat the shit out of me. Uh, second marriage is the man I had my daughter with, and he was very bad alcoholic. He beat the shit out of me. And that just kind of shows you what kind of self-esteem I had. I guess I just didn't think I deserved any better. And then my third husband was not an alcoholic, but he wasn't a marijuana addict, big time. I mean, big time. And he didn't necessarily beat me, but he slapped me around some. And I was on and off with him for a long time. During that time when I divorced my second husband due to me having an affair, and my daughter wasn't but 2. And we moved back to Dallas from Houston, and I went back to work where I'd worked before and really started partying. I mean, I was like, it was terrible all the time, every night. And I would drive drunk with my daughter in the car. And I can remember during some of those, well, a lot of those times, I would drive home 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, drunker than, as we say down here, Cooter Brown, and just be bawling because, I was sorry, such a sorry piece of shit. And I'd go pick my daughter up and go home. And then before 5 the next day, I'd turn around and I'd be doing it again. So, I don't know. I never even thought about me being alcoholic, not once. My whole focus was on these guys I was married to because they were worse than me. So I never even thought about me, maybe I was doing something to kind of attract these kind of guys. So, let's see. Well, I guess I'll go to when I got sober. I finally realized after my third divorce that I was just 33 years old. And I thought, well, 3 times and I'm 33, there must, maybe there is something wrong with me. And that was the first time I'd ever looked at myself and decided to get help. That's when I joined AA. This was 1986. And I also went to counseling, and I also went back to church. So I got, pretty heavily involved back with the church again. I grew up a fundamentalist Baptist, and that I don't need to say any more about that. After I'd been sober a year, well, I met my 4th husband, who I'm still married to today. He has been the first man to ever come into my life who accept me unconditionally and really gave me, I guess, a lot of the attention, that I had craved so badly. And one thing about him today, even with all the changes I've made, and I'll get into that in a minute, he still accepts me, and it's okay. I stayed sober 15 years. Mainly, I didn't go to AA. I was in the church. And you know what that means. I mean, I didn't have any real recovery because I was sober, and that was about the end of my recovery. And so eventually, Jesus didn't keep me sober, and I went back to drinking. Now, I've been trying to figure out if it was my surgeries and the pain I started having that caused me to start drinking again, or if I had started drinking before that happened. But anyway, it was about in the same time. And I could drink socially some, but then I never knew, I'd get shit-faced drunk too. So who knew? I mean, I guess that's alcoholic, isn't it? And but while that was happening, I had a lot of health issues. I had 3 back surgeries during that time frame, and I had both my hips replaced. So it was a bad time. I was in my late 50s, and the worst thing about it is I got addicted to opiates, and so I had a 14-year run with opiate abuse, and I tell you, I can certainly understand our crisis in this country now with that addiction, because it was the worst thing I ever did, getting off that shit. It was a lot worse than alcohol for me. And I wanted to kind of go back and let you know a little history about the way I was with my food addiction. I gained 100 pounds, and then I, of course, I'm not that fat now, so I lost the weight, but that just kind of goes to show you, I would just switch addictions. If I wasn't drinking, I was eating. If I wasn't eating, and I loved taking the opiates because I could drink more and not have a hangover, because I used to have just horrendous hangovers. And so boy, that was the panacea for me, is no hangovers. And I went back. I started in the meantime, my husband and I, we had moved up here to Gainesville from the Dallas area. And so I went back. I went to the AA here and this was in 2010, and got very, very involved. I guess I realized, that I was drinking way, way too much. I was drinking with my neighbor, and we were getting drunk every night, and I'd pass out in my room, and it was not pretty. So I got very involved in the AA group up here, and but of course, and it's traditional. At that time, I didn't even know about secular, and wasn't secular at the time. I was still, practicing Christianity. And during that time, I drank one more time when my granddaughter was 12. She had something really, really bad happen. And I can remember like it was yesterday. I had gone to a meeting. I always went to the noon meetings, and I left out of there with the intention of going and getting drunk. And that's exactly what I did. And then I can remember cussing God and shaking my fist at God and telling him to go to hell. I blamed God for this bad thing happening. And anyway, the next day I went right back. I didn't stay out. I drank then and got my butt back in AA. What happened to me as far as going into secular recovery was I had, during this, when I was still going to AA, traditional AA, I had always questioned. I had always fought with the church about certain things, and I was always rebellious. So, it didn't just start overnight. But I started watching videos and got real interested in the universe and how the universe works. And I'd always believed in evolution. And so, as I became more knowledgeable about the universe, I just realized that this big daddy in the sky was just not real. I just couldn't. And I never did buy the Bible story with the creation, and I never did. I some people take it verbatim, but I never did. So well, let's see. Anyway, I was still going to AA, and I started, when I started changing the steps up and taking the God part out of it. And this was even before I found y'all. And then my first experience was Beyond Belief. And I started listening to that and just really loved it. I really did. And then COVID hit. And so that was the start of my launch with you guys. I found Zoom, and I found the SRG group, and I just never have left. I feel like this is exactly, you guys believe exactly like I believe. And the recovery that I have seen here far exceeds what I ever got in traditional, because we were so limited with the 1939 version of Bill and the Big Book, and their unwillingness to change. You could only bring meetings that were conference approved literature, which was back in the dark ages. And so it's so refreshing and so nice. I've grown so much in this since 2019, when I started coming. In this short period of time since I've been coming to these meetings, my recovery's just been great. I don't want to sound like it's all been about me, but that does kind of give you an idea of maybe why I got into the things I did. I really like, my conviction today is to be able to help young women who are a lot like I was. And I just have that conviction that if I can give back to them and they can hear some of my story and how I've come through it, I'm happier today than I've ever been, and life is really, really good. And if I can just be of service to some other young women, that's really my conviction is. I love Sober She Devils, and I love being able to go to those meetings. They have some really meat in them. And I've also found that I am not alone. A lot of the things that happen to me happen to a lot of those women. So, it's really good to know that I'm not the only one. So, I guess that's, I can't really think of anything else to say, except one thing that I really, really love hearing in recovery is the 90-10 rule. 10% is what happens to you, and 90% is what you do with it. And I love that today. As I was going back through and writing my story, I thought, boy, I don't want to sound like a victim, because I was still responsible for my actions as an adult. So when I knew better, I did better. And so anyway, I guess I'll probably think of 1,000 things after I get off, that I wished I'd have said, but oh well, I've done the best I can. So I hope y'all got something out of that and can use it. Thanks, Courtney.
Thanks so much for sharing with us today, Rita. Really enjoyed your share. Sorry, my voice is not working too well. For those of you that have other people who want to hear Rita, her stuff will be up on our website tonight. It'll be under the speakers, and we're going to stop recording here, and we're going to